In the annals of history, few sieges are as legendary as the one laid upon Tyre. This wasn't just a battle, it was a clash of titans, a test of will between the world's greatest conqueror and a city that believed itself untouchable. This is the story of how Alexander the Great achieved the impossible. The year's 332 BC. Alexander, having humbled the Persian Empire at the Battle of Issos, marches his victorious army down the Phoenician coast. One by one, the ancient coastal cities submit to his rule. Sidon, Byblus, Aradozal open their gates. All, that is, except one. Tyre. From a distance, Tyre seemed like a mirage. It was an island fortress, separated from the mainland by nearly half a mile of open sea. Its walls, soaring 150 feet into the air on the landward side, were considered the most formidable in the known world. The Tyrians, masters of the sea, possessed a powerful navy and a fierce, independent spirit. They had withstood sieges before, including a brutal 30-year blockade by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. They looked at Alexander's land-based army and laughed. They offered him neutrality, but not submission. For Alexander, whose ambition knew no bounds, this was an insult that could not be ignored. Leaving Tyre intact and defiant at his back would be a strategic nightmare, a constant threat to his supply lines as he pushed deeper into Egypt and Persia. The island city had to fall. But how? Alexander's generals were stunned by his solution. It was audacious, bordering on madness. If he could not sail to the island, he would bring the land to the island. He commanded his engineers to build a causeway, a massive mole of earth and stone, stretching across the sea to the very walls of Tyre. The project was monumental. Tens of thousands of soldiers and laborers began the back-breaking work. They tore down the old mainland city of Tyre for stone and timber. They felled ancient cedars from the mountains of Lebanon and dragged them to the coast. Day after day, the mole crept forward, inch by a painful inch, under the relentless sun. The Tyrians. The Tyrians did not sit idle. From their warships, they launched a barrage of arrows and projectiles at the exposed workers. Their divers swam underwater to pull away the foundation stones of the causeway. The Macedonians built two massive wooden siege towers, over 160 feet tall, and placed them at the head of the mole to protect their men. They armed these towers with catapults and ballistae, creating a shield of missile fire. For a time, it seemed the plan might work. The causeway was nearing the city walls, but the Tyrians were cunning. They devised a hellish weapon, a fire ship. They took an old horse transport ship, loaded it with pitch, sulfur, and every flammable material they could find. They weighed down its stern so its bow pointed high into the air. On a day with a strong wind blowing toward the mole, they set it alight and towed it toward the Macedonian siege towers. The sight was terrifying, a floating inferno bearing down on the wooden structures. The crew of the fire ship set it on its final course and then swam to safety. The impact was devastating. The flames engulfed the towers, turning them into colossal torches. As the Macedonians scrambled to fight the blaze, Tyrian warships swarmed in, their soldiers leaping onto the mole, slaughtering the defenders and destroying the siege engines. The sea itself seemed to boil, and the air filled with smoke, fire, and the screams of men. Alexander's first attempt had ended in catastrophic failure. The causeway was a smoking ruin. Any other commander might have given up. But Alexander was not any other commander. Defeat only fueled his resolve. He looked at the smoldering wreckage, not with despair, but with cold fury. He would not just rebuild. He would build bigger, stronger. He ordered the causeway to be widened, making it large enough to accommodate more towers, more engines, and more men than before. But he knew this wasn't enough. He needed to control the sea. Alexander, the master of land warfare, had to become a master of the waves. He traveled back up the coast to the cities that had surrendered to him. He demanded ships from Sidon, Arathos, and even his old rivals from Cyprus. He flattered, he threatened, he promised. Amazingly, they answered his call. Soon, Alexander had amassed a fleet of over 200 warships. The naval balance of power had shifted dramatically. Now it was Alexander's turn to blockade Tyre. His new fleet, crewed by his allies and commanded by his best generals, surrounded the island. The Tyrians were trapped. They could no longer raid the causeway construction or resupply their city from the sea. Their one great advantage was gone. The mole advanced again, this time protected by a formidable navy. New siege towers, even more monstrous than the last, were constructed, not on the causeway, but on ships lashed together. These floating batteries were armed with the most powerful catapults ever built, capable of hurling massive stones to batter the city walls. The final assault was a scene from a nightmare. Alexander's fleet attacked from all sides. Siege engines on the mole and on the floating platforms unleashed a relentless bombardment, day and night. The thunderous stone against stone echoed across the water. The Tyrians fought back with ferocious courage. They dropped red-hot sand on the attackers, which filtered inside their armor and burned their skin. They used giant grappling hooks to seize men and machines, dragging them into the sea. But slowly, inevitably, the mighty walls began to crumble. Under the constant pounding, a section on the southern side of the island breached. Alexander, never one to lead from the rear, saw his opportunity. He personally led the charge, boarding one of the lead ships. With his elite hippospists, he was among the first to storm the breach. At the same time, his fleets forced their way into the city's two harbors, north and south. The battle spilled into the narrow streets of Tyre. The fighting was brutal. House to house, street to street, the Tyrians, knowing there would be no mercy, fought for their homes and families with the desperation of the doomed. But they were outnumbered and overwhelmed. After 7 long months, the impossible city had fallen. Alexander's wrath was terrible. He had lost many men and his pride had been wounded. The victory was soured by the cost. The city was sacked. Thousands of Tyrian men of military age were executed, and an estimated 30,000 women and children were sold into slavery. The great island fortress, the proud queen of the seas, was left a desolate ruin, forever bound to the mainland by the very causeway that had been its undoing. The siege of Tyre stands as a testament to Alexander the Great's unparalleled military genius, his unyielding determination, and his sheer force of will. He saw a problem deemed unsolvable and simply refused to accept its limits. He moved to the land. He mastered the sea. He conquered the unconquerable. The causeway he built still exists today, a permanent scar on the landscape, connecting Tyre to the coast. It is a silent, enduring monument to one of the most incredible engineering and military feats in all of human history. Thank you for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration into the epitaphes of the past.